Welcome to Anchorless, where we challenge assumptions with logic and dig deep into the foundations of belief. In today's video, I'll be turning my attention to one of the most debated philosophers in religious thought, David Hume, and specifically, how his argument against miracles is frequently challenged through syllogistic reasoning. Christian apologists often respond to Hume by constructing clean-cut syllogisms, trying to show that miracles are not only possible, but even probable. But are these arguments as sound as they appear on the surface? In this video, I'm going to break down the most popular syllogisms used against Hume's case, expose the hidden assumptions they rely on, and show why they fail to dismantle the real philosophical weight behind Hume's skepticism. Whether you're a skeptic, a seeker, or someone who's sharpening your apologetics, this is where we put every argument to the test. Let's get into it. Before we get into the syllogisms, it's important that we establish a few things. First, the purpose of this video is to showcase that Hume's epistemology is a very viable tool and is still viable to this day to apply healthy skepticism into the resurrection. Secondly, it's important we lay down a quick summary of Hume's argument against miracles. Suppose, for instance, that the fact which the testimony endeavors to establish partakes of the extraordinary and the marvelous. In that case, the evidence resulting from the testimony admits of a diminution, greater or less, and proposition, as the fact is more or less unusual, the reason why we place any credit in witnesses and historians is not derived from any connection, which we perceive a priori between testimony and reality, but because we are accustomed to find a conformity between them. But when the fact tested is such as one as has seldom fallen under our observation, here is a contest of two opposite experiences, of which the one destroys the other, as far as its force goes, and the superior can only operate on the mind by the force which remains. The first syllogism we're going to be looking at is the circularity challenge that was posited by C.S. Lewis.
Hume says a miracle is a violation of natural law. Natural laws are defined by uniform experience. A miracle, by definition, would violate uniform experience. Therefore, miracles are ruled out by definition, not by evidence. Thus, Hume's argument is circular. It assumes what it sets out to prove.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Fourth premise completely sabotages itself. It seems to be making an a priori case for a miracle, which is not at all in accordance to Hume's standard. A miracle may have that concept, but the fact that uniform experience is taken into account, you therefore indirectly agree that evidence is also required here. If there's an experience, then that means it is a direct call for empirical evidence to make a judgment on what actually happened. This is a complete non sequitur. Next up, we have a testimony epistemology objection posited by William Elston.
Much of our knowledge comes from testimony. If testimony is reliable in general, then rejecting miracle testimony uniquely is unjustified. Therefore, miracle testimony should be treated like other testimony, unless independent reasons disqualify it.
This is misunderstood. Hume never says we can't trust testimony. He says that the degree to which we trust testimony should correlate with what it claims. And when it claims a reversal of everything we've otherwise observed about nature, then we weigh that against the trillions of observations where nature behaved consistently, especially in testimonial evidence, where it also favors that nature seems to behave consistently. The burden isn't on Hume to discredit testimony, it's on the miracle to overturn the world. Next is a problem of probability aggregation, which is posited by modern-day apologists.
Hume says no testimony could ever outweigh the improbability of a miracle. But the improbability of a miracle and the improbability of false testimony must be weighed together. In some cases, the probability of false testimony is lower than the probability of a miracle. Therefore, belief in miracles can be rational when testimony is sufficiently strong.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
The problem with the third premise is that it ignores the historical track record. False or mistaken testimony vastly outnumber credible, well-documented miracle testimony. Ironically, premise 2 invites this comparison, asking us to weigh probabilities, and when we do, the data tilts overwhelmingly toward human error. Therefore, the burden is on the miracle defender to explain why this particular testimony isn't just another entry in that long history of false reports. The aggregation argument ultimately turns on itself. Rather than undermining Hume, it reinforces his point that uniform Hume infallibility is the safer bet. Next, we have Particularism versus Methodism, posited by Plantinga, James Bealby, and other Reform epistemologists.
Hume assumes we must first define a method for knowing what is believable. But rejecting miracle testimony because it doesn't conform to regular experience begs the question against particular cases. Therefore, we should allow specific miracle reports to potentially override general regularities if the evidence is strong.
This is more of a restatement of Hume rather than a rebuttal of him. If your method for evaluating testimony works in everyday cases, then it should work when applied to miracle claims as well. Hume agrees. The reason miracle testimony fails is because, when held to the same standard of evidence, it collapses under the weight of what we already know. The final syllogism we will be going over in this video is posited by Christian philosopher and epistemologist, Dr. Tim McCru. Now, this one is going to be a little bit more lengthy, so bear with me here.
In religious contexts, miracles are supposed to function as signs. Miracles that function as signs would be impossible unless they took place against the backdrop of a stable natural order, since that's what enables them to function as signs. Therefore, the existence of a stable order of nature cannot be used as an argument against miracles in religious contexts.
Premise 1 sounds reasonable at first. Miracles are often described as signs, but that framing creates a false dichotomy. You don't actually need a miracle for something to function as a sign. Natural disasters, famines, wars, people throughout history have interpreted all of these as divine signs. You've probably heard people say things like, there was a satanic parade in Brazil, and then a flood hit the next day. Clearly God's wrath. Except, meteorologists probably already predicted the storm before the parade even happened. That's not a sign. That's just weather.
Miracles that function as signs would be impossible unless they took place against the backdrop of a stable natural order, since that's what enables them to function as signs.
Premise 2? That one I can mostly agree with. Miracles only stand out if there is a stable background of natural order. If resurrections were an everyday thing, Jesus rising from the dead wouldn't be noteworthy. So sure, miracles need contrast to stand out. But here's the kicker. That doesn't actually refute Hume, it reinforces him. If miracles are defined by their rarity, their total deviation from the regular order, then by definition, the more unlikely they are, the more evidential weight you'd need to overcome that improbability. It raises the bar, it doesn't lower it.
Therefore, the existence of a stable order of nature cannot be used as an argument against miracles in religious contexts.
And this brings us to the sleight of hand in McCru's conclusion. The fact that miracles need a stable natural order to be noticed doesn't mean the stable natural order can't be used against miracles as an argument. This is a classic case of conflating the metaphysical with the epistemic observations. We're not talking about some ontological law of nature being unbreakable. What we're talking about, more so what Hume was talking about, is epistemic reliability. That is, how often does nature behave consistently compared to how often people say it doesn't. So here's the real deal. When someone claims a miracle occurred, we weigh it against the track record of how nature tends to behave. If nature reliably does not produce resurrections, but someone said it did this time, the burden of proof is massive, and the burden doesn't go away just because miracles need regularity to look impressive. In short, McCru's argument sounds clever, but when you step back, it quietly concedes Hume's point. Miracles are improbable, and it's the improbability that makes them impressive and hard to believe. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this breakdown, hit the like button, subscribe, and stay tuned. We've got a whole series coming up on apologetic and scholarly arguments for the resurrection, philosophy of miracles, etc., and why most of them collapse under scrutiny. This is Anchorless, where belief meets the burden of proof.